This is the Film Tangent Show, right? Welcome back, everybody.
No.
Hey, everybody, welcome back.
Welcome back.
I am here with Jack. Jack, say something.
Yo, I'm back. Film Tangents.
And I am also here
And
with
we got
Mr.
Jake over
Jake.
here
Yeah.
on the ones and twos.
Hey, everybody, welcome
back
back.
to Film Tangents.
It's the the full trio is back together for now. Jack's on a probation period, so we've been testing. we've been testing how episodes do with Jack, and then how they do without him. And depending on this episode's performance, Jack might be cut from the show.
Yeah, I'm just a contract worker. I go by the episode, by the contract. So, if you want me to stay on, leave a comment. If not, just don't. I guess.
I remember. I hate when jobs. That would be a nightmare to work a job like that where you're actually like on the chopping block like by the week. It's like I remember in high school, it was my first job. I worked at a grocery store, and they like all of a sudden in like the span of a month they hired way too many people.
Oh yeah.
And then and I remember like one day like being like, I don't have any hours this week. And like I was like 16 at the time, so I was like, oh cool, I don't have any hours. And I remember my mom being like, you need to go over there and tell them you need hours.
Because
I'm like 16. I'm like, oh, I don't need I'm free this week. And my mom's like, no, you gotta freaking go down there and talk. So dude, I talked to them and they're like, oh, we just don't have enough hours. And then one day they're like, yeah, so what we're doing is we're running statistics on who can scan groceries the fastest, and those ones will get the most hours. And I remember I was just like, well,
I stand no chance.
I could just quit. I mean, that's also an option.
Yeah.
You know what I heard, man? Aldi,
that'll free you up some hours.
Aldi, apparently like they track how fast like the person,
Aldi.
like the cashier checks like how fast they scan through each order, because they're always moving, like hauling ass when they scan stuff. But the same thing happened to me like when I worked at the store with a red bullseye. I don't know if you could imagine what that is, but around Christmas time, every year with like Black Friday and Christmas, they would hire a shit ton of people. And then like all the people who usually worked like full time, like that was like the income that they depended on, would like be like, I've got like 20 hours and they won't give me any shifts. And like all of a sudden it was like everybody had like these medium hours. And then there was like some people who had like none and could barely get any. So it's just like so weird.
Dude,
I can't work at volatile places like that. I gotta work somewhere I can't do it, dude. It's too much chaos.
I've had some weird work experiences, man. Because not work experiences, but grocery store experiences. Since you brought that up, because for whatever reason lately, every time that I've been going to the grocery store, I don't know what's happening. Maybe you guys can illuminate me. Make sure to like and subscribe, everybody. Follow the podcast on Apple Podcasts. For some reason, I've been going to the grocery store. I'm going to Publix. I'm in the South, so we have Publix over here. I don't know where you're listening, listener, and maybe you guys have something else. So I go to Publix to get my groceries, and I get all my stuff. I usually have like a cart, and I don't like doing the self checkout unless I just have a basket with a couple of things. If I have a cart full of stuff, somebody's checking my shit out. I'm putting it in a convenient belt, and somebody's ass is like
especially if you have like produce and stuff.
Exactly.
Self checkout.
I was there today. I went to the grocery store today. I got bananas, grapes, tomatoes. It's like mangoes. I'm just getting a bunch of produce. And so this has happened to me multiple times. So I've pointed this out before now, but I haven't done it on the show. Where I pick the line. There's usually. Because of the time of day that I go to Publix, I go in the mornings to Publix. Because of the time of day, there's usually only senior citizens. Let's just put it that way. There's usually only older people. So it's like me and a bunch of grandmas and some grandpas, at that time at the grocery store. But that time, I mean like at like 8, 9 in the morning. And so I get all my stuff. I go to check out, right? And I'm like, okay, there's a couple of grandmas in front of me. Sometimes there's one. And the number one thing, because sometimes they have two lanes open. Maybe it's like the fast checkout one and then the other one, or maybe they just have two normal lanes open. And the number one thing I look for is that they have somebody bagging the groceries because I don't like to bag my groceries.
Yeah, I hate that when you checking out and then you got to start bagging your own groceries. Yeah,
that's like the
or they make
thing.
You like
what do I work here now?
Yeah, because you can't I mean, technically, I feel like you could probably just let them finish and then bag your stuff, but then you feel like a complete piece of shit. Like if you do that and you're like just sitting there and they like take your card and then they pat like that. Just I don't know.
People used to do that when I was a cashier and I didn't have a bagger. Like they would like just let it pile up. And just, watch me.
But that is a huge terrible move because every time I put in that situation, I just feel like it's like I have to help this person out. I have like 20 items here. They're both trying to scan them as fast as they can, and now they have to bag that there's somebody behind me. You can't do that. But no, dude, I again, I always pick the lane where there's a bagger, right? I'm not about to bag 20 plus 30 items of groceries. I'm not about to bag a bunch of bananas and tomatoes. I don't want to do that. And like Jake said, it's like I don't work here, So I choose the lane. I go to the grocery store. I'm usually there like 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. I choose the lane that is most convenient to me, meaning there's somebody there and there's somebody bagging the groceries, right? I put one of those little yellow dividers behind the other person's groceries, and then I start putting my shit there. Now, I'm very peculiar. I don't know if anybody else listening does this. I organize my groceries the way that I want them to be bagged. So like I put all the cold items together. I put all like if I have bread, all the bread kind of stuff, all the box stuff, Like if I picked up pasta and cereal, I put them like next to each other. Like these items, put them in the bag together. So I go out of my way to even organize the groceries in the way that I want them to be bagged for me. Because it makes it easier for when I get home to get them in the fridge in the way that I want to put
organized.
Am I alone in this?
No, I'd just be throwing them in there at random. I'm not gonna lie.
No, dude, I organize.
I'm like that to some extent. Like I don't put my ground beef on top of the tomatoes or whatever.
Yeah, me either. Meat goes separate. But I mean, also like I primarily shop at Aldi, so I end up bagging it, and I do that once I bag it.
Yeah,
it would be easier on myself if I did that.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna bring up Aldi at one point because before, where I lived before, there was an Aldi like a few minutes from my apartment, and so I always went to Aldi because then Publix was quite farther away, and Aldi's cheaper than fucking Publix anyway. So I used to go to Aldi all the time, but now the issue is that now where I live, the Aldi is like 20 minutes from me. Like 20, like not even 20 minutes, like 25, 30 minutes. I ain't going to fucking Aldi. I'm not going to drive 25, 30 minutes to go to the grocery store. Publix is down the road. Publix is 10 minutes away. So I'm going to go to Publix. The days of me bagging my own groceries are over for the time being. Again, this is a Publix experience. I've dealt with fucking Aldi enough. And even at Aldi, I still put my groceries in a way where I was just like, can you please at least put them in the car this way? Because at Aldi, just put your shit, you just throw your shit in the car, and then you have to go.
I love the Aldi people. No, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, because I was gonna say like at Aldi, they do that with my experience at Aldi was always that they would just very quickly get all my produce and all my shit that I bought and just kind of put it in the cart. And then that was always my Aldi. I actually hated going to Aldi. I don't know about you guys, but then you have to go and like to the side and then put all your groceries in your bags that you brought, or if you bought those paper bags and you have to put in the paper bags. I hated going to Aldi. Although I loved their prices, I was always happy to go there.
That's why I go. I suspect that's why you go, Jack. The prices. It's like so. But the thing about Aldi,
but you guys have an Aldi down the road too. That's the thing. I lost my Aldi. I don't have an Aldi down the road anymore.
Yeah, they're right next to us. No, so Aldi, like, I love those guys because I'll go every time I go through their lines. Here's my thing with like the service industry: as long as you're not completely rude to me or something, like I don't give a fuck, you don't have to kiss my ass. I would rather you don't make extended conversation with me or anything. Yeah. I don't need that. Just bag, it's fine. Like I'm very polite, and I expect people to be courteous to me too. But you know, every time I go through the Aldi line, man, I'm just like, good for them, man, because they're sitting in a chair. Which, first of all, like, yeah, let your cashier sit in a chair. Let them sit. Like, there's so many places where you go and they make them stand at the end of the thing, and then when a customer comes through, they're like, "You ready to check out?" And then they got to go walk down and stand again. They got to stand for like 8-9 hours. It's like, holy shit, man. And it's like, yeah, I go through Aldi, man, and it's like I go through the line. It's like someone's just sitting there. They don't even say hi a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, I have
put your stuff through and then send you on your way. And I'm like, you know what? Good for them, man. Good for them. Do you guys have the kind of how it should be,
where they have a conveyor belt, but like a front and at the back where they like split it? Do you guys have that? Okay. So no, I guess we have this.
It's just so normal.
Yeah, because they have some Aldis where then after they beep your stuff, then it goes down another conveyor belt, and then you get it at the end, and it has like two sides. So then they block one, and they put the other person's groceries for the other side, and then that person goes to that side. But the one that I had was one where you just have to give them your cart, and they put your shit
that's how it is
in the cart, and then you put your shit in your bags. But yeah, Aldi is great. I can't talk shit about Aldi. Other than that, I hate bagging my groceries. But again, I hate bagging my groceries, and so. The great thing about Publix, and funny thing enough too, is that Aldi, I think at the first time I went to Aldi, they didn't know they needed quarters for you to get their carts.
Oh yeah.
And I think somebody gave me like their quarter, and sometimes I would go to Aldi, and a cart would already have a quarter in it, so I would just get like a free little quarter cart. But I always left a quarter there. I was like, this is for the next person.
What a good guy.
I just wanted to make that note. But yeah,
nice
dude.
Virtue signaling.
Yeah, you gotta leave the
ass clown.
You gotta leave it there, dude. But
pay it forward.
But
so I have a story about a bagger that I worked with. Were you about to just move on, Edward? I didn't want to.
No, I'm not finished with my Publix thing, but we can go into a deeper tangent. I'll go back to it.
Okay. I was just gonna tell this story. I had a bagger that I worked with at this was at I used to work at Bilo. I think Bilo is out of business now or something, but I don't think, do they even have them anymore? I don't think it's not there anymore. It's a Food Lion now. But anyway, I worked at a Bilo in high school, like I said, and there was this at one point we got this new bagger, and he was like this middle-aged guy, and he like immediately the first day he's like bagging stuff, and he tells me, he's like, I used to work in this other industry, but he was like, I just got a DUI. I was driving on opiates and stuff, and I like flipped my car, and I guess like the criminal charges that came with that or whatever got him canned from his job. So now he was working at Bilo, and I was just like, oh man, that's rough. I mean, and we just kind of talked about it a little bit, like, oh, I guess you learned from that, and glad no one got hurt or anything. But anyway, so then the day goes on, a customer comes through, and I'm scanning their stuff, he's bagging, and he tells the story to the customer. He's like, yeah, I used to work in this industry, but then I got in a car accident. I was driving on opiates. I was, the customer's just like, oh, well, I'm glad no one got hurt. Then another customer comes through, and dude, every customer that came through, he would tell this story, like on cue every time, dude. Oh. Every single customer that came through, he would find some way to insert it. And if he didn't find a segue, like they would be like, he would be like bagging their stuff, and he's like, oh, let me put the cans in this bag. I just don't want that to squish your bread, damage your bread. And then it would just be like, speaking of damage, I wrecked my car when I was in an accident driving on opiates. Jesus Christ. And then like if it was like a non-talkative customer, he would just be like bagging and he would go, yeah, I was in an accident driving on opiates. And dude, we all used to just be like, I used to talk to the other cashiers there. They would just be like, dude, he just every customer that comes through, he tells that story.
Dude,
I think I heard that. Dude, I think I heard that story like 700 times, no less than 700 times working there. It was insane. And to this day, I wonder if the reason he was telling, the only reason I could think of that he kept telling that story to everyone who came through was this weird like pride thing of like, yeah, I'm not really supposed to be at Bilo. Like, I'm not really supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Like, I think it might have been that kind of thing. I don't know, but
yeah. That's the only thing I could think of is the middle-aged guy bagging at Bilo isn't a good look, so maybe you're trying to salvage some sort of image. I'm only here because I wrecked my car on opiates.
I would do that. I think
remember what he told one lady. He told one old lady, he was like, yeah, I wrecked my car while I was driving on opiates. And she was like, she just goes, oh, that is not cool. And he just goes, no, ma'am, it isn't. No, ma'am, it isn't. And I was just like, oh, here's your receipt. Go. God damn. Jesus.
Honestly, dude, I think I would do that. I think I would, maybe just for one day. I'll be like, I'm going to do an experiment. Like if I was a cashier, where it's like, I'm just going to tell everybody the exact same thing over and over and over and over and over again.
Oh man.
But yeah, I was at Publix, as I was saying before, to get my groceries. I picked a lane where there was somebody there, and there was a bagger, right? Behind senior citizens. And so the point of my story is I organized all my groceries. Like I said, I organized them in the way that I want them to be bagged. It's like, please bag my groceries this way. We're gonna put the bread with the other bread and everything together. And so usually, and this has been like going on for a long time, once it gets to me, right, the person in front of me, they've been serviced, they've bagged all their groceries. Once it gets to me, once it's my turn, the bagger leaves. They leave. They leave, dude. Sometimes they leave because I guess like the person in front of me, the senior citizen here, asks them, because every time they ask you, I don't know if you guys have been to Publix, but every time that they finish bagging your groceries, they ask you like, do you need some help with your groceries? And if you say yes, they will push your cart for you to your car and then help you put them in your car. Very nice folks. And every single time the fucking bagger leaves. Sometimes it's because, again, they're senior citizens and somebody goes like, yes, please help me. Help me take my groceries to my car.
Yeah.
And sometimes they just walk away. It's happened to me before where the guy just walks away and goes to a different cashier to help them.
Maybe he knows how particular you are with your groceries. And I was just trying to like.
I was just thinking, like, what is it about me? Is that because I'm just like some like younger guy here?
Probably.
And so I
like he can handle it.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thought. I feel like whoever the bagger is, and there's been multiple baggers. I feel like they look at me and they go like, "That guy can bag his own groceries," and they just walk away. And so then
looks capable.
I end up just kind of looking around, being like, "Somebody want to fucking come bag my groceries?"
You should like push your cart away after and just like fall down on the floor and just like start just like, "I need some help."
Yeah.
And you got the Arthur fist like clenched up.
And so, dude, I always end up having to bag them myself. Then I end up having to stand there and then be like, well, at least they're organized in the way that I want them. And then I just bag my own groceries. And then the cashier helps me out every now and then. They put something in a bag and just kind of hand it to me. And it makes me feel silly. Like you just said, because it's just like, isn't there a guy supposed to be, isn't there somebody supposed to be here doing this for me? I don't work here. I don't work for you. You guys bag my groceries, put them in the cart. You ask me if I need help, and I say no. Like, no, I don't need your help. I can take my car with my groceries. But Yeah, I've had.
I remember baggers used to they used to use that as an excuse to leave. Like they would help someone out and then just
go on a smoke
take
break.
Oh yeah, and then walk real slow back to the store. I remember that, man. You'd be like, "Where are all the fucking baggers?" Like, yeah, I remember there was this one woman who I was like 16 at the time. So again, this is not behavior I'm proud of or anything, but I was 16 with a chip on my shoulder, working like a shitty job for minimum wage, and I remember this lady came through. And I can't even remember exactly what it was, but I just remember her being just this rude, complete asshole, like coming through. And she had tons of groceries and two little kids, and she was just nasty, man. And one of the items that she had was this giant, the biggest pack of water bottles you've ever seen. Like picture like Costco, but double that.
Mhm.
Like just who knows, a 64, maybe more than that pack of water bottles. And I remember I scanned that and kind of set it aside like to where the bags were. And then I bagged all her stuff, and then I gave her a receipt, and then I just said, "Have a good day," and I turned and started helping the next person, and out of the corner of my eye, just watched her hoist the water bottles and have to squat down and do this squatted little penguin walk to put them under the cart. I got in trouble for that, but it was funny. It was my little way of getting back at her for being a rude piece of shit.
Okay. I hope everybody enjoyed this
grocery tangent.
The film of the week.
Our clerk's experiences.
Yeah. The film of the week is one by the name of Asteroid City. It came out in 2023. It was written, directed, produced by Mr. Wes Anderson. But it stars a list of people. I'm going to list them out. Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Liv Shriver, Steve Park, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, so the daughter of Ethan Hawke with Uma Thurman. So she looks just like Uma Thurman. Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, among others. Jeff Goldblum being one of them. Again, 2023 film. Jack, I wonder if this is your first Wes Anderson movie. In any case, I'm going to open the floor to you, and then you can tell us your experience. What did you make of Asteroid City?
Okay, so this is the first film. This is the first film I've watched by Wes and this director, and I mean, right off the bat, man, I don't know. This one was a tough watch for me. I felt like after that first exposition scene of them just reading off in monotone and black and white, just introducing all the characters, I was already like, okay, I didn't retain any of that. Like this was just not at all the way that I like to be introduced to the characters, the setting, who people are. I was just like, oh my God, what's going on here? So then we get kind of into this back and forth, kind of going from the black and white and kind of the behind the scenes of the play itself, and then kind of the stark contrast of the insanely saturated colors, beautiful looking cinematography, and very robotic type, where it's you're shifting perfectly to different people. It's very symmetrical. Jake kind of pointed out, and that's kind of what carried through the rest of the film for me. All of the shots are very symmetrical. It's very could tell it seems like this filmmaker is very much a perfectionist in the way that he shoots the movies. I didn't feel like a lot happened at all during this movie, and I really struggled to find kind of throughout it, we go from, them kind of being there for this little like science convention or whatever. They have the meteorite, they have the ceremony, they got the eclipse going, and then we have the, alien come down, which was the best scene in the movie for me, just visually, because I didn't feel like this movie had a lot going for it non-visually. Um, I thought that was a great scene. Um, have the quarantine, which was very weird, kind of part of that movie where it's just like there's all these just dialogues that are just like people killing time while they're quarantined, but it's like again like it doesn't seem very impactful to me. And then kind of towards the I don't think we finished the last part of this movie, but then going to the return of the meteorite, and then that actor kind of walking off stage and having that dialogue with the other
Margot
actor
Robbie.
across.
Mhm.
Yeah, Margot Robbie across. Like it's kind of like he's trying to do the same thing he was doing in the play with the through the windows, except for with Margot Robbie, and I was just like, oh, like, why, what are we doing here? But I don't know. I the way that like people talk during this movie, it's just like seemed like no, like people don't talk like this, like at all. Like it just was like it didn't seem
Very
human.
stylized. Yeah.
Blither. Yeah, it's just it's like unintelligible almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
You jump in.
I'll jump in.
So you guys are gonna beat
this
up
is
on
my.
Wes Anderson.
Oh my god. So I've seen Fantastic Mr. Fox by
Mhm.
Wes Anderson. I liked Fantastic Mr. Fox, and for a while that was the only Wes Anderson movie I had seen.
Until I
and
started
then
subjecting you to watch more of them.
Right. I saw Moonrise Kingdom. I hated Moonrise Kingdom. And like, here's the thing. This is my thing with Wes Anderson. When I watch a Wes Anderson movie, it is like I am watching The Room by Tommy Wiseau.
Mhm.
That is how I feel about his movies, his writing, at least. I feel like Wes Anderson has tricked everybody into thinking his movies are good because of his extremely unique and skillful visual style. But I feel like I am watching excerpts from The Room by Tommy Wiseau. I really feel that way.
Have you seen The Room?
Just no, but I've seen
haven't seen
clips
it.
of it, and yeah, I've seen like clips from it, and it has that like it's like I don't want to say it's so bad it's good because it's not. It's just they're so bad. They're so bad. I mean, this movie too kind of nailed down for me why, or it's a great example why I generally do not enjoy ensemble casts either. Because the problem with ensemble casts is they usually give each cast member equal time, more or less. And so it's like, who the fuck is the main character? Who am I empathizing with? Who's the protagonist?
There's
I mean,
none.
I get it. In this one, it was like, okay, it's the dad, but he's like a weird sociopath who's just like, telling keeping the mom's death from the kids.
For
Why?
3 weeks.
Don't know. Right? Like, why do you do that?
Just because he
I
was
don't
being
know.
avoidant and he didn't want to do it, and then the other situation where that one weird scene where, well, there's two that he just weirded me out, man. Like it's like she's Scarlett Johansson's like, why are you taking pictures of me? I'm a photographer. Like he said, like I'm a photographer like 3 times like during the film as like his answer, and that was it. I was like, what the heck? Um, God, and then the other part where he's saying like they were like, Dad, the son's like, Dad, are you gonna abandon us? He's like, yeah, I mean, I thought about it, like I was going to, but like, don't
Yeah,
worry, I'm
that's the
not.
thing I
I'm
was
not
trying to
going
think of.
to. It's like, don't worry about it. Like I decided against it, so it's all good. And if I was, it would have been a temporary thing. So I mean, it would have been fine in the end.
Yeah, it's like the
It's like-
protagonist is neither interesting nor likable. I don't give a shit about likable protagonists. Like The Shield
Some
is
are
one of my
interesting.
favorite shows, and the protagonist is a complete piece of shit. The Penguin, love the Penguin, piece of shit protagonist. You could go on and on. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, like I love villainous protagonists. Bring them on, man. anti-heroes or straight up villain protagonists. Bring them on, man. As long as they're interesting and as long as there's something I can get behind in some way that I can at least have them be my avatar and understand like what they're doing. But like this guy was neither interesting. How could you make any of these people interesting? They don't talk like people. They're not people. They all seem like they're on drugs in Wes Anderson's movie. Everybody's on drugs. They're all just like, why did you take the picture?
Yeah.
Because I'm a phenomenon.
And then the
Do
freaking
you like space? I wish I was outside of Earth's atmosphere.
And then like
Me
the little
too. It's like I don't even. This is my thing too. I'm not even gonna break down unless you guys give me reason to. I don't even feel obligated to break down a single scene. It does not even merit a critique. I don't. It's illogical. It is completely. Dude, it is this. You could put this movie in film flame, and people walk around like, "Oh, Wes Anderson is so great." It's like, how you could put this movie in film flame? It would, to me, this would have a home on film flame. You know, it's like it's that bad. But the visuals, if I could say something positive, the visuals are incredible, amazing visuals. I want to learn about how this movie was made. But it's like, I would put this movie on in the background with the sound off if I'm like writing. I would, because it's very creative visually.
Yeah.
And that is why Wes Anderson, in my opinion, has made it, because of his unique style.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I was telling Jack, like I never walk around in public, you know, and like just people you interact with, at whether it's at a bar, parties, get-togethers, whatever it might be. I've never once heard anyone say, like, I love Wes Anderson films. Never.
Yeah.
It's only film students. Why? Because he has great filmmaking style.
Yeah.
You know, and that part, too, was tough for me because I'm like, I want to like this, but I just can't. I have to be honest with myself. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, man, if this movie had a good script, this would be awesome because the visuals are so striking. But it's just incoherent. The characters are all talk like blithering idiots, and it's nonsense. And I don't. It doesn't even merit a critique.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I'm gonna come in here. So this film is shot by Robert Yeoman, who is Wes Anderson's longtime collaborator. Shot on film. And this is I'm going to give some context for the listener to whom this also might be their first Wes Anderson movie, and also for Jack, for whom this is their first Wes Anderson movie. I've seen every Wes Anderson movie, every single one of them. This is the one that I was missing.
Hats off to you.
Ouch.
This is the one that I was missing. Before in this podcast, we watched his very first film called Battle Rocket, for which I believe Jake actually had a positive feeling about that movie.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
So you've liked the Wes Anderson movie before, and so this is kind of where I come in. Let me see, because I also want to see Battle Rocket. Yeah,
I've seen Isle of Dogs too.
Yeah,
Isle of Dogs wasn't bad.
Yeah,
it's like Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah, and so that's Mr. Fox is great. So I guess what I'm trying to establish here is a through line to which Anderson is understood, right? Because he's a very specific filmmaker. He came out in the 90s, so he's part of the 90s boom of auteur filmmakers. And by that I mean, filmmakers like Quentin Tarantino, filmmakers like Paul Thomas Anderson, filmmakers like, who made the before movies? Richard Linklater.
Richard Linklater.
And filmmakers like Wes Anderson, right? Filmmakers like David Fincher. All of these guys, Spike Jonze, all of these guys, right? All of these are 90s guys. And all of these are people that we can think of who have like a very signature style, right? Everybody from Paul Thomas Anderson to Tarantino to Wes Anderson to Fincher, they all have a very distinct style that differentiates them from everybody else, you know. And to this day, we still wrestle with these guys because from the millennial generation that came after them, we don't really have a lot of filmmakers that we can kind of take to and be like, oh, this is the, other than like Ari Aster and like Robert Eggers and a few guys here and there. But the 90s had a huge boom of creative guys, Anderson being one of them. And he's been working with this cinematographer his whole career, although this style is uniquely Anderson, to the point that there's a way of understanding it as this kind of like Wes Andersonian way of filmmaking, right? As you pointed out, Jack, there's a huge emphasis in symmetry. So everything just being dead centered. If you're shooting a character speaking, they're dead center in the frame, and everything around them is symmetrical, really well organized. So that's really what Wes Anderson has come to be known for, just being this very obsessively meticulous filmmaker. And obviously that comes in the pre-production. So they really organize these things, put everything together, and I think he draws out a lot of his films. And so he made this film, but before that, in the 90s, he made Battle Rocket, and then he made a film called Rushmore that people love. Rushmore. I don't really love Rushmore, but I think it is a good movie. Starring Jason Schwartzman. That's how long he's been working with this guy, because Schwartzman's go back to the 90s with Anderson. Then he made Royal Tenenbaums, which I adore that movie. That came out in 2001. And so I guess what I'm trying to establish here is that he's been working in this very singular way with these kind of same folks in making these very like eccentric movies, and people fell in love with him because he made really great films in the 90s, in the 2000s, like the early 2000s. That's when he made Fantastic Mr. Fox 2009, which I also love Fantastic Mr. Fox. So he has a track record of making just very eccentric, great films, really like idiosyncratic movies. And so the next point from that is that's why these people talk the way that they talk, right? And that's why the movies are shaped in the way that they are, because with each progressing movie for Wes, not only did the visual style keep getting more kind of streamlined, where it's like, this is what a Wes Anderson movie is supposed to look like. Every movie looked more Wes Anderson as they went, and they sounded more like Wes Anderson as they went. So it's almost like an escalation. And there's been a meme with Wes Anderson online for a while of like, how can this guy keep outdoing himself? Because people have wanted him to just go backwards and not keep going forward and just doubling down. He has a movie by the name The Grand Budapest Hotel, which came out in 2014. That's one of my favorite movies ever. I have the movie as a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, you really like that one. I have not seen that one.
Yeah, I have that as a 10 out of 10. I've seen the movie multiple times, including at our school in the big screen. So suffice it to say, I'm a really big fan of his. Like, I hold a lot of his films in like a very high esteem. But I'm able to recognize that he's kind of left his audience behind a little bit. Starting specifically, I feel like with Isle of Dogs, even though Isle of Dogs is a good movie. Since Isle of Dogs, he's progressively getting more and more and more and more idiosyncratic and weird. And his movies have come to an extent of just almost being deadpan, which I think is kind of like something that you guys had an issue with. Very deadpan delivery of information. And the characters are very... If you look at interviews of Wes Anderson, the characters just feel like extensions of him as a person. That's kind of how he talks, how he carries himself. He talks in a very peculiar way. And so again, all the information is delivered in a very deadpan way, very kind of like monotoned way. And it's almost trying to convey to the audience like humor from that. But again, I think the issue with him has been that he's kind of just gone inside his own belly button. He's become like a Ouroboros. He's just eating his own tail. So his movies have ceased to... I think the thing that made his movies like really like interesting before is that they were coming from a very specific, eccentric kind of guy, and they were trying to engage with a broader audience. You get what I'm trying to say? Where it's like, it's Wes Anderson coming to the audience and being like, how can I articulate myself? How can I articulate my feelings? And how can I articulate, the way that I feel emotions, right? And so with every successive movie, because he's had a lot of success, won a lot of awards, it feels like he's kind of gone inwards and just being like, I'm going to stop making concessions for the audience and just make these movies the exact same way that that maybe I experience these feelings and emotions. And so they end up just being weird, like weird and monotone and deadpan movies, where even moments of, let's say, moments that are supposed to express like inflated emotion, right? Like a dad telling his kids, that their mom passed away, or, two teenagers getting romantically involved, end up coming across in kind of just a very obtuse way, to put it that way.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to kind of express that, where he's not conveying these emotions in the conventional sense, or in a sense that is human. They almost feel alien, and it's funny because this is a movie about these alien encounters, but the movie and the characters and their emotions feel alien, and that was the issue that I had with The French Dispatch, which is a movie that comes before this one, which was the first movie from Anderson that I was just like, this is not very good. And so doesn't really have a high rating for me. This movie also, I I I I wish this movie had been him kind of making a concession for the audience, because it seems like The French Dispatch already was him just being weird, and his movie not coming across very well emotionally or narratively or in a character level, and this movie did the exact same stuff. And he has a movie coming out this year by the name of the Fenian Scheme, and I feel I don't feel positive about it. Because
Jack, when you want me to get our tickets for that?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. I feel like after watching this, like, Edward, I'm gonna have to have you give me one movie to give a redemption chance for this director, because this really was just not a good first look at him as a director outside of the way that it looked. I was kind of thinking while you're talking, like, this movie felt like, like one of those just like dreams that you have, where it's like you feel like you're plop, like I'm somewhere. I'm in this, the desert, and boom, like I don't have all the information, and people are just saying things that don't make sense. Yeah. Like it felt very, very weird in that way, where I was just like, none of this makes sense.
Yeah, and it was rough.
And like usually like when a movie is really bad in one way, it's like you can at least enjoy how bad it is and be like, oh, like this is so bad, like let me laugh at this, it's funny, like, and I get enjoyment out of like, oh, this sucks, but like, it's still at least can be like, like, it is what it is, you could still have fun with it. But this movie I didn't feel like I could have fun with at all.
Yeah, I feel you, because like you, I had a similar experience where, like 5 minutes in, I was like, maybe my brain's not in the mood for this.
Yeah.
Because as you start this movie and you have Bryan Cranston narrating this, this like meta narrative of this film, right? Because this is like this meta contextual element where we have Bryan Cranston narrating straight to the audience the making of the play, and then we're watching this play in form of a film. So there's just like this, like a few layers to this movie, right? And the second that it started that way, the second that it was like it's black and white, and Cranston's breaking the fourth wall, he's talking to me, and he's talking to me about this guy that wrote this play, I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck? But in a bad way, because I was just like, I'm not, I'm immediately disconnected. And then we went into the play itself, and outside of me finding interesting that Edward Norton was like, this is where everything's going to be in stage, and then going into the film and then having the camera pan and show you like, oh, that's where the crater is, and that's where everything is supposed to be laid out. Like he said it and then they laid it out. Like other than the tickling in my brain that was satisfied by that, you're left with not a lot, and I feel like that's the issue, that it's just like this film felt like a meta exercise in writing, rather than a film in and of itself. It felt like, hey, watch me construct this story with 3 layers, in which I am going to be, in layer 2, I'm going to be addressing, the movie that you're watching in and of itself in a narrative, textual level, and saying, this is Act 2, this is Act 3, this is how this is going to end, this and that, right? Like, watch me do that, and then watch the film that's inside of that. And then I'm going to take you out. Like when the second alien came and the dad left the film, which was the play, and then goes outside and talks to Margot Robbie. It's like this movie's operating in a in a wholly like technical fashion, where you're supposed to go 10 out of 10, do it again, and clap for Wes Anderson because he did something that is like technically just difficult to execute. I feel like that's all there it is. But then the movie forgets to be a proper, story, and to have interesting elements and interesting characters and some level of catharsis, or actual genuine human emotion outside of what Schwartzman and what's the name of the actress? Black Widow.
Scarlett Johansson.
Scarlett Johansson. Outside of what they too can convey with their eyes, despite the written word, right? So I think that's the issue. Like, do you agree with me, Jake, in kind of what I'm putting across?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's like, I mean, because I thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting when he left the stage. I was like, oh, okay. He literally leaves the film and walks off the stage and goes. But then, like, when he's talking to Margot Robbie, I'm just like, Wes Anderson's trying to craft this as like some kind of emotional moment or something, and I'm like, am I supposed to be like, what are they talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. I don't like any of these people. Yeah, again, it's like it's like if you took the great things about this movie, which were just the visuals basically, and put a good script there, like a great script, it would be an awesome movie. It would be great. It'd be fantastic. Be like,
the bones are there.
That weird. Be like, oh, that like comedy that was shot really, that dramedy that was shot really weird and cartoonishly with all the weird visuals and stuff, and it was great, and I loved that character and this character, and I love that line. There's none of that in this movie.
Yeah,
none of that.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. And he missed the mark. And again, I just feel if I can describe this movie in one way, in one word, which is the word that I would use to describe his previous movie. If you didn't like this, don't watch his previous movie, because his previous movie is just this, and in some ways worse. It's just indulgent. What's that Peter Griffin thing that he?
It insists upon itself, yes. Lois. It insists upon itself.
It insists upon itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not just in a bad streak. What would you boys rate this movie?
2. 1 point for the visuals.
Yeah, I really did not enjoy this, and it's just like, I don't know, it's really tough as like somebody in the audience where it's like, you have a beautiful looking movie, you have a great cast, you have a film director who like Jake said, maybe it's not like a mainstream one, but like people like love him, and like what are like, you have all the resources to make a good film.
Yeah.
And it's just like, there's no reason why it shouldn't have been. Like the setting, like the idea of being in the desert and, being an alien movie. Like, I mean, it's all like set up to be so well. The execution and storyline was just so poor to where I mean, this is a crazy thing, but I've told it to Jake. I'm like, I think this is like, I haven't watched like a ton of movies. I think this is the worst movie I've ever watched.
Wow. Wow. Holy dude.
That's awesome.
But so I'm going to give it a 1 in that fashion.
The only reason I'm laughing is because it's Wes Anderson, and it's like, oh, as a film school graduate, it's almost kind of like, ooh, you're not supposed to say that about Wes Anderson.
Coming from film school, you're used to hearing people just fillet Wes Anderson at all opportunity.
Fillet.
But
that's a great word.
But it's funny.
Fillet.
It's funny because also at the time, right, when we were in school, he didn't have these movies that are bad. He didn't have these bad movies. Like now he has bad movies. Jack, if you want to give Wes Anderson a shot and watch the movies that at least I feel like actually deliver on what his style, capabilities, and skill is able to, because he's an incredible craftsman. Like just from a crafts perspective, this movie is impeccable. Like in terms of craft, in terms of putting a camera where it needs to be, in terms of just cinematography, and even the Alexander Desplat's score. I like the music in this movie. Like from just like a craft perspective, you ignore everything else, right? Everything else from storytelling and dialogue and everything else. Like this is a great movie.
Yeah.
If you want a movie that delivers this level of greatness with actual good story, watch The Royal Tenenbaums, that one from 2001. I would say either watch that or watch The Grand Budapest Hotel from 2014. Either one or the other.
Okay.
Again, taking these into account, the further back into the past that you go, the less idiosyncratic and weird it's going to be. And the less like perfect framing you're going to get, you know. And then the more you go into this cinematography, the more the movies become like this one. I think the Grand Budapest Hotel, and you guys can argue with me in the comments. I think the Grand Budapest Hotel is like the perfect version of his kind of late career self. So kind of akin to this movie, but like a perfect version of this movie. And The Royal Tenenbaums is the perfect version of his early career self, you know. And
All
then
right. I got it in the letterbox because I feel like I owe him another chance.
Give him another chance, you know. And then Fantastic Mr. Fox is an incredible, just stop motion animation film, and that's just kind of on its own.
But that one's great. I'm on a technicality. Jack has technically seen Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah. We watched it when we were kids, but he doesn't. You don't remember, right, Jack?
Not at all. I'm trying to. Yeah. I don't know why I have no recollection of that.
The Fantastic Mr. Fox actually. If you look at if I look back on the hardest I've laughed, the times I've laughed the hardest in my entire childhood.
When that guy
I think the scene. Movie? Yeah, the scene in Fantastic Mr. Fox where the guy destroys the room.
Yeah, that's a major crash.
Trashes the room. Yeah. I think that was one of my that was top 5 hardest laughs of my entire childhood. I remember us sitting there watching that, Jack, like you, me, and all of our sisters were watching that movie, and I think I rewound that scene at least 4 or 5 times. Like I was roaring. I was fucking roaring. It's just like complete silence as they give this guy bad news, this like Hunter, the villain of the movie. And then you get this like 3-second beat, and then he just goes Citizen Kane on the fucking entire room. Yeah. And then another 5-second beat of silence as he like catches his breath.
Yeah.
I was howling.
Wait, did you watch this movie? I don't think you were there actually. So I watched this movie at school in the big screen. They had it as a screening for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, you were there? Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah, so we watched it together. My brother was there too. He came to see it with us. That was a great.
Yeah, and when that scene happened during that screening, I was roaring, dude. Yeah. I was dying. I had tears in my eyes.
Yeah, that's a great scene.
I don't know what the way I described it just now is the best I could describe it. Like it's so goddamn funny, dude. Just the comedic timing of that scene, hilarious. But it's a great movie too.
Yeah, it is a great film.
It's got a great, just great characters, great plot, great. Yeah, it's all good. Again, beautiful visuals, very nice stop motion animation. Which I will say, I loved, man. That alien scene in Asteroid City was incredible. They were building the stop motion. Yeah. I couldn't.
It was fascinating.
Yeah, it was incredible looking.
Yeah, it was incredible, but it was also fascinating just how they moved the alien and how he went about getting the thing, getting back into holding the pole again. Really great like little standout scenes like that in this movie. Unfortunately, they don't add up to a good film though. This is a 5 out of 10 for me, and I only say that because there's a part of me that wants to watch this again. And then I might feel differently because there's a part of me that it's like, okay, now I know what the movie is. Like, there's an element of me that is like, okay, I know what this is. Like now I'm not gonna be, put off by maybe like the execution or the movie itself. So I want to watch this movie again, and then maybe I might feel worse or differently in a positive way. So I'm gonna give it a 5 for now. So it's a placeholder.
Seems
5.
like you're coping a 5.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a coping. It is kind of a cope. It is kind of a cope, I have to say. But we have a 1.
A 5 is like what I would have when I was still in film school. I still had that thing in me where I would feel pressured.
Yeah.
Like I remember just could barely stand The French Connection when I saw it, but I still gave it like a 5 on letter or whatever. I'm not even saying this is what you're doing, Edward.
No,
but
I'm not doing that because of that. I'm not feeling that way.
But like I still had that in me, that thing of like, well, I'm supposed to like this, but now it's you gotta, there is something to be said. I know there are some contrarians out there that kind of get on everyone's nerves where they like, shit on every acclaimed movie they shit on, and
Yeah.
then they're like, oh, but the Star Wars prequels are masterpieces. Yeah, like, those people are annoying, but
Yeah, those people annoy the fuck. Those people annoy the shit out of me. Especially because the Star Wars prequels
yeah,
are terrible. Those movies are
right. But
terrible. They were in
I
theaters
do kind
this past few weekends. Go ahead.
Oh,
I somewhat
the
respect
25th anniversary of the third one.
Mhm.
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah. I do somewhat respect though the at least the balls to just be able to say like, hey, this thing that everybody likes and considers like a great film, I just hate it.
Yeah.
Like and I've I have grown out of that peer
Yeah.
pressure, especially now that I'm not in film school anymore and I
Yeah.
don't, I
No,
just
for me is that
Well, and I
have.
think the
Go ahead,
difference between like I feel like the difference though, Jake, is like we're not going into a Anderson film being like, oh, we want to shit on him because he's Wes Anderson. I go into
yeah.
every movie we watch every week being like, I really hope that I enjoy this,
Yeah,
and
of
like I
course.
want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
like when it's like a score like that, it's like
Yeah,
it is what it is.
it really
I
let
didn't
you
enjoy
down.
it.
And that's
Yeah.
for me. This is coming more from a place because I don't have any like feelings like that where I feel like I have to be protective of Wes Anderson. Not at all.
Yeah.
Because I said it before. Like the movie before this one is also not good. But the issue,
Yeah.
the reason why I'm saying this is because there's some movies where I watched them and I get a feeling from them that a feeling of like incompletion for me,
Mhm.
where it feels like me watching it the first time did not achieve like that there's something left on the table there for me to understand.
Yeah.
So there's movies that I have that feeling with. Like for instance, like I spoke about this recently, where I felt that way about Miami Vice, which is a movie that people don't like online. Like if you look up ratings for that movie, it has like a 50% Rotten Tomatoes rating. People
Mhm.
don't think of that as being like a great Michael Mann movie. But I watched that
No,
movie.
I shut it off after the first 30
But that's
minutes,
the
and I
thing.
love Heat. I love Michael Mann.
Yeah, that's the thing. I watched I watched it once. I watched Heat, the first one. I mean, I watched Heat the first time, and I was like, "That's all right." But I had like this uncomfortable feeling with that movie. Where I was like, "I have to watch that movie again." And so then I watched it again, like a few months ago, and I gave it an 9 out of 10 because then it clicked. It clicked. I was like, "I get this movie now." You know.
Mhm.
And so with this movie, I have a feeling. I don't know if that's what it is. So I want to explore that further and then maybe I'll get to the bottom of whether or not I actually enjoy this movie or not, or what I think about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I might talk about this again in the future.
And I think there was so much to that movie. So much was said. So much was like there was so much going on in this movie where I did feel during part of it is like, am I just not getting it? And
Yeah,
then I was like, nah, like I just don't think it's there. But if you watch it again and you're like, I missed something, I would love to. I would love to hear that perspective.
yeah. No, because I love rewatching movies. Because oftentimes I feel like movies are more organic than people give them credit for. That you can watch a movie in a plane and then you can watch a movie at your house and you might have a completely different experience with that film. So I'll rewatch this thing for sure. Do you have the aggregator for this? We have a 1, a 2, and a 5.
2.67.
So on the Film Tangents wiki, this is a 2.67 for the
Which
show.
is that an all-time low? Or
It is. I think so. It
I
might
think,
be.
yeah.
It's gotta be.
It might be, dude.
Hopefully we never get that low again, but well, except for Film Flame, but
May we never go
but
that low again.
Madam Web was a 1 average,
Yeah, I
right?
do
A
know some
1 out
on
of
average.
10.
We
Right?
hated that
We
movie.
both
we
gave that
gotta-
ones.
But
I gotta
this is on
get on
Jack
the-
wasn't around for
episode
that
of
one.
Film Flame.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that bad.
Yeah, but I guess this is like on a show proper, right? Like on the main show. That being said, those ratings being spoken, there's something that I've been wanting to address. I want to have just like a segment in which we openly talk about this because I want to put this away. I've had this on my notes for. I've had this in like in my fucking segments for the show forever, which is that I want us to talk about what these ratings mean to us, like out loud. It's just because I want to put that
Oh,
to
yeah.
bed, so that if anybody listening has any doubts about what this means, because I know that sometimes numbers can be kind of a controversial subject, as I've seen, with music criticism, Which I remember there was a time I listened to Anthony Fantano here and there, the internet's BCS music nerd, the music reviewer. There was a time in which he stopped giving movie music scores, like number scores, and you just would review it, and you would go down to his description and it would just be like, listen to the review, like I'm not gonna give this a rating. And Chris Stockman famously, he was giving movies ratings from like A plus to like Fs and shit. And he stopped because of now being a filmmaker himself and feeling the pressure of criticism, which is a whole nother conversation in and of itself. I know that the critical critic has been lambasting him forever because of that. So that being said, and there's some folks that we have in common in Letterboxd that just don't give movies ratings. They just log them, give them a heart, maybe. So I want to talk about ratings. I want to talk about the meaning of the numbers, what they mean for us, and just to kind of put that into perspective for the audience. Like if Jack says a 1, what does that mean? If Edward says he gives a movie a 10, like Jake and I gave Challengers, what does that mean for us? So let's do that. I guess we can start with ones. I guess we can build our way from 1 to 10 and just kind of talk about what those numbers mean for everybody. But I guess for me a 1 ultimately means a movie that has no worth. That's what I give a 1 to. Like no worth. Like in any artistic element. Like there's no cinematic, there's nothing that you can get out from it, like in a cinematic perspective. There's nothing you can get from it in a narrative perspective. And oftentimes, if a movie is offensive, either to my intellect or to my principles and values, I give it a 1. What about you guys? What does that mean?
Yeah, about the same. Oh wait, hang on. Let me. Yeah, about the same. Like it's. It's like. Yeah, no value. Just horrible. There was nothing I liked about it.
Yeah.
Honestly, nothing I could cling to. Even like the visuals. Because with this movie is not a. If this movie didn't have good visuals, if Asteroid City,
and that's why I want to talk about this now, since we had this like, polarizing rating.
It would be a 1. It would be a 1 out of 10. I hated this movie. It was complete. I got nothing out of it. There was no discernible. I mean, they were discernible themes, but no themes that I thought were communicated well or that I gravitated to. No good characters. The plot was not engaging whatsoever. No, not even any good lines of dialogue. No good dialogue exchanges. Right. But then the visuals were incredible. So I have to give it, I can't give it a 1 out of 10 because I'd be discounting that. So I gave Asteroid City a 2 out of 10. But yeah, so a 1 out of 10 is like, and a lot of times 1s out of 10s too, like aren't, those might even be movies I had to turn off halfway through. And it's like, which I don't normally do. Like generally I finish movies. Books, you want to do you want to DNF books. You want to mark those as do not finish. You don't want to waste your time with a book. Yeah, but a movie is 90 minutes on average probably, and like we can give some examples of 1s too. So I have Madam Web.
Madam Web for sure. I give it a 1 too.
M. Night Shyamalan's The Visit, Baywatch, A Christmas Story. There's a Christmas rom-com called The Family Stone that I gave a 1 out of 10 to. Just horrendous, abominable movie. Yeah. Those are some examples.
Yeah. I gave that also to Madame Web. There's a movie we've talked about this. God's Not Dead. I gave that a 1 out of 10. And also Spike Lee's Old Boy. Those are some examples for me. Like I gave those 1 out of 10. So I saw no redeeming quality in even Old Boy, the Spike Lee one existing.
Wow.
So that's why those ratings are there for me. Jack, what does that? What does a 1 mean? You gave that 1 to Asteroid City.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for you?
I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but as somebody who didn't go to film school, as somebody who isn't, looking through film, through the lens of it being a craft, I look at movies as, for me, being a scale of enjoyment.
Yes.
With a 10 being, I really enjoyed this movie to the most of its capacity. Like, I would watch this movie 100 times over, again, if, like without having knowledge of it, like love the movie. Like, and I think the best way of me really articulating how I feel about this is I feel like, the different parts of the movie are like multiplicative. Like if the story is a 0, no matter if the visuals are at a 10, if the cast is at a 10 or a 9 or whatever, no matter what, all those multiply, it's a 0, like, or a 1 in this case.
Interesting.
That's an
So if
interesting way of looking at it.
and I think that probably if I were to delve further into it, certain things have more weight than others. Like if I think that the story probably is the most heaviest like weight for me. The story and the acting performances are probably the most important points to me. And so I would have to probably take some more time to come into like a weighted system of like which, the weights are across the different elements of movies. But I think like at the end of the day, it's like enjoyment. And then it's just like if there's no story to be had, which I didn't feel like in this story there was anything to be had, that there's like I just have it's impossible for me to enjoy it, and therefore it was a 1.
Yeah, I can see that because I remember that the way that I thought about like the things that I put a lot of value in filmmaking before, craft and presentation used to be like it used to hold a lot more weight than it does for me now. Where I think I remember when we went to see Dune, Jake and my brother went to see Dune. That was kind of part of the conversation that I had with you, Jake, at the time, where I was like, well, the movie looks great, but it's like, but I was like, it's long and boring as hell, so it's like, I can't, it's like, I can't just give this movie like a great rating just because it looks good. And I see that's where you're coming from, Jack, where it's like, from where I'm looking at it, you have that's what you said too, that I guess you have like you put more value on whether the story is interesting or to you, or whether the actors are doing a good job in conveying those emotions.
I felt like the sole moment in this movie to have from an enjoyment perspective was the alien scene.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think that there was any value out of any of the other like story points.
Yeah.
And that's why
just
I got
a short film. Like that scene could have just been a little short film. Maybe add like a bit more of a tiny, short, quick 3-act structure there, and you have a short film with that alien scene.
But I also feel like this idea as for this movie could have also been an entire film. Like I feel like it very much could have been,
for sure,
shot this way and with a right, script. It could have been an 8 or a 9 or a 10.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
I think it had that. Like that's why I really have a hard time, and why this movie really just like I think even made me spite it harder than maybe I should have, is because like it could have been so much more than it was, but it plummeted so hard.
Yeah, you feel like it just had so much potential.
So maybe that's also another factor for me, is if a movie has a great potential and doesn't deliver on it, that's probably a huge negative.
Yeah. Well, that being said, let's take a bigger bite of this number scale. Like, what does it mean for you guys then when a movie is either something from a 2 to a 5? Like, what do those numbers mean? What's a 2? What's a 3? What's a 4? What's a 5?
Yeah, so I mean, a 2, like I said, is if there was like maybe 1. It's either it's like a 1 that had a slight redeeming quality, like in this case the visuals were amazing, or maybe there was like a cool character or something. But it's also a threshold of like it's like maybe there were a few redeeming qualities, or there were some scenes that were at least watchable. But like in this movie, I just didn't feel like there were any real watchable scenes other than the alien scene, which honestly, even that scene, like not much happens. I mean, in the sense of, it's just an alien coming down and picking up a rock and going back in his ship, and it's beautifully shot, but it's like, whatever, man. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then like a 3, again, like a 3 out of 10 is like, a good example of a 3 out of 10 for me is like From Dusk Till Dawn. Like I really don't like From Dusk Till Dawn, but I have, let's see. Oh, here we go. Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
I have as a 3 out of 10.
I have that movie Don't Worry Darling. And the movie
Oh,
Bombshell, I have those as 3 out of 10s. And the movie Creep that we
okay.
saw together, that like Creep movie, I gave that a 3 out of 10.
Oh, I liked that movie,
Yeah, I
but
know you liked that movie.
Halloween Kills is a good example. So Halloween Kills is like a disjointed mess, but there are some entertaining scenes in it, and there is one really interesting awesome sequence. Not even from a story perspective. I thought it kind of barely worked from a story perspective, but there's a whole sequence that's a flashback to the events immediately after the first movie. So it takes place in the 1970s and it's shot like it's in the 1970s. So they completely recreate the look and feel of the original film. And there were some very cool, um, there were some very cool moments during that sequence, very cool musical scores, very cool visuals, creepy visuals that take place in the Myers house, with kind of the pale moonlight coming in through the windows and that classic John Carpenter score,
Hmm.
that redeem that movie slightly, but it's
Yeah,
still awful.
yeah,
But and then a 4 is more like just didn't like it, didn't care for it. A
yeah.
4 is like not my cup of tea,
I
and I
have
was a
the
little
I have
bored.
the movie Cruella, and also what is it? Spider-Man: Far From Home. I have those as 4 out of 10s.
That
Yeah,
makes sense for a 4.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Because that's it, right? Because it's like I agree with you, Jake, so far. Where for me, like I said before, like a 1 is just a movie that doesn't really have a lot of redeeming value. And it's not worth watching. And to me, honestly, like a movie from 1 to 4 are movies that are really not really worth watching. But
hmm
then it just like increases, like 2, 3 to 4, it just increases, like Jake said. Maybe there's a scene, maybe it's the music, maybe it's the cinematography, maybe it's like an acting performance in the movie. Something uplifts the movie enough to go from completely just thinking like there's really not that much going on here. Um, that would make it worth someone's time, despite the fact that somebody made this, obviously.
Yeah.
To them just increasingly going like, okay, there's some stuff going on here. Um, like for me, a 4 is just the threshold of saying if I give this a 4, this is a bad movie, and
Yeah.
it's just plain bad because either the story didn't go anywhere or there's something about it that just doesn't add up story wise or production wise or what you name it. Um, and so that's just like a 4. That's just like a blanket statement. 4 is just a bad movie. Like there's nothing particularly super egregious. There's nothing good
Yeah.
about it. You feel the same way, Jack?
The biggest thing that I can think of, I feel like you and Jake did a really good job of covering that gradient, but I think that five is probably the threshold for
Yeah.
me where it's like 5 is a movie I'm like, okay, like this was worth watching.
Hmm.
And if I were to go back in time, I'd watch it again. And anything further up from that, like I would definitely, give it another chance as a rewatch. It's a good movie. 5 is the threshold where it's like, for me, that was a good use of
Yeah.
time.
For me,
4 to 2, I mean, 2 is
yeah.
just obviously, like Jake said, like a little bit better one. Like, maybe it had one character that I thought was cool, or had a great performance, or one story element I thought was different that I hadn't seen before. Like it could be a variety of things, but having redeeming qualities. 3 to 4, it's really just scaling up from that to being a variety of things being better. um, I don't really have much of a more in detail way of articulating that other than just 5 being kind of like the break even point for
Yeah.
movies for me,
Yeah. For
or
me,
and warranting like giving it another look.
yeah. For me, 5s are not usually movies that I will go back to and just like a 5 for me is not a movie that I'm going to go back to and give another look to. But it's a movie that if somebody puts on, I'm like, okay, I guess this is on. Like the movie
yeah, yeah.
Twisters from last year, I gave a 5 to.
Ugh,
Um, and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, I give it 5 to. Because then also 5 for me is also relegated to movies that a 5 for me is not a good movie. Like
yeah,
it's not a good movie, but it's a movie that might have good qualities, and it's a movie that I also believe that the people who made it went into it with some level of intention of making something worth watching.
Yeah,
And that's
that's a
usually
good
what I
point.
give 5s to. Like if I feel like the movie has a heart, it has like a beating heart, somebody had a vision into this movie. It has a handful of good scenes, but it's not good. That's 5 to me. That's ultimately.
Twisters was that movie was so hard to watch. I forget the like protagonist, like the female protagonist name, but they said her name like 1,000 times.
I forget her
during
name
that
too.
movie.
I don't remember.
It was like Jane, where's Jane?
I don't
like
remember her
it's
name.
just like I don't remember what. Like it was just constant the whole movie. Her name. I was just like, stop saying her name. And it's just like these. My God, I have so many problems with that movie. That wouldn't be a 5 for me.
I remember
a 5. I watched that with my family. I hated that movie, and it wasn't even like poorly like done. Like it wasn't even like poorly shot. Like that movie had some great visual qualities, especially with like the like storm chasing elements and the tornadoes and stuff like that. But God.
I'm not very big on natural disasters in movies to deviate slightly here, but like because I don't find a natural disaster to be an interesting antagonist. So like if you take a movie like Crawl, for example, Alexandre Aja's Crawl, with the alligators, that is it's a natural disaster, but then you also have these killer alligators that add that horror element, and the alligators are characters. They're living, breathing characters. They're mindless man-eaters, but they're characters, and I just don't find like tornadoes or floods or whatever it is like very interesting. And that subgenre of movies too. They had that was like there was a boom after Life of Pi. There was an absolute explosion of stranded on boats movies where it's just someone stranded on a boat in the middle of the ocean. There was like 10 of those.
There's a big. There was one that was like a big one though. I think it's called like All Is Lost or something.
All Is Lost, yeah.
With like Robert Redford or something like that.
Yeah, it's just like I have no interest in it, and I'm sure there's like movies. There's ones that are fine. I know that there was one with like Naomi Watts that came out.
It's called, like,
I don't know if it was
Impossible
older,
or something like that.
Yeah, and that one seems cool, but again, it's like I don't know. I just don't. A non-living antagonist, i.e., a storm or a flood or some kind of natural disaster, not that interesting to me.
Well, in Twisters, it's like if you don't want to die, don't drive into a tornado.
Yeah,
like I mean, that's pretty avoidable. So it's like, yes, like they try to rope you into where it's like, oh, we have this equipment, we're gonna figure out how the tornadoes work, and then be able to like stop them from happening. But like, it's like, if you don't want to die, don't drive into a tornado. And like, it's hard to really like be like, oh well, they're so brave getting in a truck and just driving at a tornado. Like, it just, oh, this guy's got this lifted Tacoma and he's just revving it up. Like, I mean, it's just like there's really a ceiling to how cool that can be for me.
Yeah. But then, going back to the numbers, then I felt like a movie that was like a superhero movie. But going back to the numbers, then for me, like a 6 out of 10, I think I gave Crawl a 6 out of 10. And I gave The Substance a 6 out of 10. A 6 out of 10 for me is just a movie that's where a movie I go like, okay, there's something good about this movie. Might be entertaining. Like Crawl was just entertaining and fun to watch. It's like one of those movies I don't mind. Like I would put that movie on and just be like, oh, let's put something on for the sake of having something that's fun on. So for me, a 6 out of 10 really usually means like this movie is competently made. It has competent acting. It has an interesting premise, and it's executed at least in a decent, like somewhat interesting way. You can sit there and watch the whole movie and just be like, oh, that's all right, So that's kind of just my that was all right number for movies most of the time.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Me too.
I let me explain my 5 real quick.
Go ahead.
5 for me is average.
Yeah.
Like 5, that's the middle of the road, right? And it's a mid movie. It's average. It's like the way I feel about 5s out of 10s. And I know this is kind of like a rote observation, but it's like a piece of toast with just butter on it. It's like, I'm not gonna like gag on that, but I'm not gonna get excited about it either.
Right. Right.
Maybe I'll get excited about it if I'm in the right mood. If I'm starving, I'll get a little excited about a piece of toast with butter on it. But like examples of like fives for me are like I have in here. Let's see. I had the perfect example, and let me see
You have
where
Asteroid
was
City.
it? Deadpool.
Yeah, Deadpool's a good
like,
5.
It's just a 5. Like, there's nothing, or Deadpool and Wolverine, to give a more recent example. Deadpool and Wolverine, it's an average superhero, your average R-rated superhero movie of the 2020s, where it's like there was no emotional investment for me, but I was almost never bored. That's another thing, entertainment value. So a 5, a 6 means I was never bored, right? A 5 means I was almost never bored. But maybe like one scene or two scenes tops, I was a little bit bored, or I kind of yawned a little bit, or I was like zoned out a tad.
Yeah.
But if I was like bored for more than a few scenes, it has to be a 4, unless again there is like some other quality, like incredible visuals or something that could bump it up to a 5. Like a lot of these. Because a lot of these are like more straight up cases, like Deadpool and Wolverine. But then there's other movies that are tricky. Like I'll give Barbarian as an example, that horror movie from a few years back. I have that as at a 5, but it's a bit different. It's more nuanced than that, because it's like the first 2 acts of that movie are actually pristine, but then the third act takes a shit. So then I'm in a situation where I kind of average things out. I do a small tug of war in my head, and then I average it out at wherever it's going to land.
Right.
So, but yes, going back to 6s, a 6 is like, I liked it. I genuinely liked that movie. You know, and I was never bored during it. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, I have that Spider-Man movie.
If I wasn't bored, if it was entertaining, if I was never in, because boredom is painful.
Yeah.
Like the feeling of boredom that's pain. So if I had no, it does. So when I say I was never bored, it doesn't mean I'm out on the edge of my seat the whole time, but I'm never in pain from like, I'm never looking at the clock. Like, I want this movie to end, and that's that's a 6 for me.
Jack, do you have anything to add to the 6s?
Yeah, I think I mean it's for 6 for me. I think it's a little less than that. Like 6 was just like a slightly. It's still, to me, it's like in the mid, the 4, the 5, the 6. Like to me, probably like there's some things that could sway how I feel from 4 to 5 to 6, where it could be like the mood I'm in. It could be like the environment that I'm watching it, the people I'm watching it with. That could sway it from 4 to 6 very easily. And so that really, it's really up to, just how it goes. A 7 is really where I draw the line to where it's like, I think this was a good movie.
Yeah, that's how I feel. Like, for instance, I have John Wick 4, Top Gun Maverick, Creed 3, The Killer. Like, those are all movies that I'm like, that's a 7 out of 10 movie. Which is to me
John Wick, you can't like in good conscience put like much higher than a 7. You could make the case for it to be higher than a 7, but John Wick 4 had some good scenes where you're just like, I couldn't give this less than a 7.
Yeah, you can give it less than a 7.
We're in the roundabout and he's just out and cars are going around. Like, I mean that scene alone.
So that's it for me. Good. Just like movies like that, movies that are just like outright fun, entertaining movies. Creed 3. Just fun movies, entertaining movies that even at some point I might have been like, oh my god, this is a 10 out of 10. Or that even have just like incredible scenes in them. But just fail in some way. The characters are not all the way there. There's not any big emotional climax. The movie kind of falls flat a little bit in the second act or in the third act. With John Wick 4, there's just not much to the movie other than it's action and it's fun. So movies like that, like anything to me. For instance, I gave Conclave also a 7, where the movie just kind of fell flat in the ending and in a little bit of the execution. If a movie just falls short of greatness, that's a 7 to me. Like, you were just almost a great movie, but there's some things just holding it back, but it's still really fun, and I'll watch it again, like in a heartbeat. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
My best example of a 7, I just came across it among the other 7s. I think my best example of a 7 is Late Night with the Devil. I saw that when it came out. Yeah, I saw it when it came out about a year ago now. It came out like last year in the spring or summer. And Late Night with the Devil, it's like sevens are tricky for me. So 7, I kind of agree with what you guys are saying, but I think I'm a little more lukewarm on. I think I like my sevens a little less than you guys might like your sevens, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So like Late Night with the Devil, but yeah, I'm about where you guys are with sevens, but like Late Night with the Devil was, it was not only um just like, oh, I liked this. It was really entertaining. I was never bored, and I was on the edge of my seat during some scenes, right? And then, but every scene I was there for it, really following the story and engaged. But also, it goes like that one step further than a 6, where it's like, and there's also some strokes of genius here. There's some
Yeah, I
genius.
agree with
There's
that.
some brilliance, But Late Night with the Devil Late Night with the Devil shits the bed, like, right after the climax, like, in the
In
last
the
maybe, like,
resolution.
10 minutes, if I'm recollecting properly.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, it's like, whereas if it had stuck the landing, that movie definitely would have been an 8.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kinda what sevens are to
Yeah,
me.
yeah, no, I agree with you for sure. Just movies that fall short in some way, of just being a great
Yeah.
movie.
A lot of sevens, like, fail in the climax, I feel like,
Yeah.
too. That's, like, a big hallmark of my 7 out of 10s. Because, like, right here, I have The Conjuring at a 7 out of 10, which I don't know if I'd rate The Conjuring a 7 out of 10 if I rewatched it. Who
I
knows?
have that
But
at a 6. I don't
I
know what I
think
have that at.
I think, like, The Conjuring, I haven't seen it since 2014, so a lot of it's going off of memory, but I have watched scenes from it, like, clips online and stuff since then. If I In times that I've been writing like different horror things and needed some inspiration. Um, and The Conjuring, from what I gather, it was very well made. James Wan actually really brought like some vision to that
I actually have
movie.
that at a 5, funnily enough.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
probably would maybe put that like I'd probably drop it to a 6 maybe if I
Yeah.
rewatched it, I'm sure. But to me, The Conjuring, it's hard to call that an average movie because there are a
Yeah.
lot of above average scenes that are really well done. Like one I'm remembering is the scene where the 2 girls, they share that room, and then one of them sees like something behind the open door, so like the bedroom door is open or
Yeah.
whatever, but all you see, it doesn't show anything, you just see this dark corner of just shadow,
Mhm.
and then like the door slams shut, and I just remember like that scene. And there's a lot of scenes like that in The Conjuring where it's like, this is really well done, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
really well done. Like there's other versions of this scene in other movies that are shit,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
James Wan did a really great job with them. But
That's
but then like the
yeah.
climax gets goofy. Like you have this exorcism, which is okay, but then there's like just some weird contrived bullshit that happens in the climax, and yeah, and it's also not like The Conjuring is a movie. It's like a Hallmark Channel horror movie in the sense that it's not a fresh idea, nor is it in any kind of fresh context. It is just a
It's reheated.
been there, done that
Yeah.
idea.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's
reheated Nat shows
reheated.
movie.
Yeah. I was
Yeah,
just gonna say,
it's just the haunted house movie where some
yeah.
paranormal investigators
Yeah.
show up. We've seen it
Yeah,
before,
like
so
Yep.
to me,
there's
That was
kind
Insidious
of a
about
feels
glass
more.
there's kind of a ceiling on movies like
Yeah,
that
like
too.
to me, I gave The Conjuring a 5, or maybe if I work it again, it might be a 6. But to me, like Insidious is the one where I'm like, oh, that's kind of a 7 kind of movie, Where it's like I
Yeah.
don't love Insidious. There's parts of Insidious that I'm always just like, but it's really good. Jack, were you gonna say something?
I was just gonna say, I feel like some of those type of horror movies, like it's really hard to base it on a scale of like all genres
I feel
from
like how
0
much
to
it
10.
scares you. That's an,
It almost has its own scale. Like
yeah, it almost really
that's
does.
also another
Horror
thing
for
for me
sure.
personally is like action or like horror or just different genres probably maybe don't, if you were to put them all on the same timeline for me, the ratings might not exactly equate to how I really feel about the movies,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, for sure.
You come to a movie and a genre with a certain kind of expectation of what kind of fix it's going to give
It's
you.
a comedy you
And
want to
so
laugh.
that might kind of give you a little bit of a
Mhm.
skewed scheme
Yeah,
for myself.
for sure, for sure. I guess in this
If you look
context,
at
it's kind of generalized, isn't it?
Yeah, if you look, that's a great point, because if you look at horror movies, especially, some of the scariest scenes, especially from modern horror, are from like some of the most mid
Like
horror
Skinamarink.
movies. Right, Skinamarink
Yeah,
or The Grudge. I
yeah.
think The Grudge is a great example. Like The Grudge scares the shit out of me,
But it's not
but
a
it's
good
not a
movie.
good
It's not a
movie.
good movie.
Neither the Japanese version or the
Or the
American
American version,
version.
for sure.
Like they're not
100%.
good, but there are very scary like The Grudge Girl is, for my money, I've talked about this on the podcast before. For my money, The Grudge Girl is probably the scariest movie monster for me. That's the movie monster that I would least want to see, besides Pinhead, maybe, because Pinhead is gonna torture me forever. But but besides Pinhead, I think Grudge Girl is the monster that if I saw, it would be like, I think my heart would give out because of how like terrified I was. Like, she's just so scary.
Moving on. So for me, and maybe this is kind of where maybe we get a little bit more, because I think so far, Jake, you and I feel like we've kind of been there for the most part with our scaling, and Jack more or less too, but you have kind of like a different way of looking at it. For me, an 8 out of 10 is where it stops. So if I give a movie an 8 out of 10, it's because I think the movie is great, and I don't really have issues with that movie. And maybe I might have like a minor issue, but that doesn't really detract from me thinking the movie's great. For instance, like movies that I've given this rating to, The Departed, which we watched recently, the movie The Batman, like the newest one with what's his face, Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson. Yeah, that's an 8 for me too.
The Northman by Robert Eggers.
Yep.
And Moonlight, The Revenant, Steve Jobs, The Hateful Eight by Tarantino. I've given all these movies 8s because I think all of these movies, in terms of what the filmmaker set out to do, like with a movie like The Revenant, I think it accomplishes it 100%. Even if I might have slight issue with the pacing or with, with Departed, like the issue that we had with like maybe the plot holes in that movie, those are still movies where I'm like, the craft and the storytelling and the acting in these movies, it's so beyond, good, that it just has to be a great film. So for me, like an 8 out of 10 is really what I give movies when I'm just like, this is a great movie and I barely have an issue with that movie. I think for me, like a 10 out of 10, like a 10 out of 10 is kind of like an 8 out of 10 for me. So if I ever give a movie an 8 out of 10, just think of me giving that movie a 10 out of 10. Because it's kind of just like, for instance, The Shawshank Redemption, I gave an 8 out of 10. And that's a perfect movie. I have no issues with that movie. I know you rewatched that recently, Jake. And I think you gave it a 10 out of 10 too, right?
Yeah, and I'll explain that.
But that's what an 8 out of 10 to me is, like a 10 out of 10. The Batman, The Dark Knight Rises is an 8 out of 10 for me. So like any great movie, it's an 8 out of 10. That's what it is. What do you guys think?
I think that I'm going to go back one step for me and be like, 7 is a really good movie with a fatal flaw or like one sort of lacking part. 8 for me is a great movie, like you say, with some minor flaws and some things where it had some missed potential. I don't think I rate, and my 9 is probably your 8.
Maybe.
I think that I'm not afraid to give a movie a 9 if it's really great. The 10 is where I'm really gatekeeping, unless it's like the top echelon of films.
Yeah, there's some movies that I have committed sins with. Like I have Prisoners at an 8. I've seen that movie twice, and there's a movie where like every time I think about Prisoners by fucking Denis Villeneuve, I'm like, that's kind of like a 9, 10 out of 10 movie. But I always give it an 8. I keep giving it an 8. Go ahead.
That's how I was with Dragged Across Concrete. I gave it an 8 the first time.
By the way.
And then what I realized was, and I'll go into this more when I discuss my 8s and 9s and 10s, but what I realized with Dragged Across Concrete was it stuck with me, where I kept thinking about that movie and replaying scenes in my head and really feeling intrigued by what I had seen. and certain storytelling elements in there and certain characters and their motivations that I was like, man, I just keep thinking about this movie. And then I remember I rewatched it that time with you, Edward.
Mhm.
It was like 4 or 5 months after I'd first seen it. And I realized, no, yeah, this is a 9.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, go ahead, Jack.
I think I really hit my point on the nail there. I mean,
Oh, okay.
as far as 8 was concerned,
Yeah, I think you did too.
unless you want to head over to a 9, is that ready to go over to a 9?
Yeah, well, so I'll go through. Let me give my 8 examples.
You can give your
so
8.
Like,
you can go 8 and 9.
you mentioned you mentioned it. Okay, yeah, I'll lead us into 9s, I guess. But for 8s, like you mentioned a few, you and I have some 8s in common, Edward. So both the Northman and the Batman with Robert Pattinson, I have at 8.
8 out of 10
I have
for me.
Long Legs at 8. Zodiac by
I give it
David
a 7,
Fincher
but
having an 8.
I want to rewatch that movie because I think that's an 8 out of 10 for sure.
Yeah, so I think my perfect example of an 8 is probably I'm tempted. There's a few good examples here. Maybe Zodiac. No, I'll go with Northman.
Yeah, I think
Northman's a great
Northman,
example of my
Northman
8
is like,
because
or the Batman movie. Those are like great examples of an 8 out of 10. I think.
Yeah, because I actually rewatched The Northman a few months ago, and it stayed at an 8 for me. And what it is with what it comes down to with 8s is like it's everything you said, Edward, where it's like, this is a perfect movie. I really don't have any flaws with it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I can't even really, sometimes you can't even articulate why it's not a 9 or a 10, but the best way I can explain it using the Northman as an example, it's like there's just nothing that I am left to think about. This movie doesn't stick with me the next day after I watch it.
100%.
I'm not thinking about it. There's nothing in it that's making me think about my own life, which not all 9s and 10s that I've given I can relate to or have made me think about my own life, but they stick with me. You know, they're like, there's just scenes in them where I'm like, I keep thinking about those and emotional interactions or interesting interactions that I keep thinking about. It just doesn't quite make it into that realm of like made me reflect. It doesn't. That's what it is. It doesn't make it into the realm of reflection.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I said Django Unchained is an 8 for me too.
Oh, it's an 8. Gotcha. Yeah. So Django Unchained is a 9 for me, and I feel like what it is with Django is like, I don't know. Maybe Django is more of an 8 for me, but I think what gets Django to a 9 and the Northman does not. Where the Northman does not get to a 9 is Django it just has scenes in it that it's just that extra mile. I don't know how else to say it, because Django didn't make me think about my own life. And I don't really think about Django that much, but it's just the pure enjoyment. The pure enjoyment. Yeah, the pure enjoyment. Yeah, we're getting into the part of the podcast where people don't realize how hard it is to actually speak for more
hours?
than 30 minutes to an hour. Like, it actually is tough. You start saying, like, I'll re-listen to podcasts and I'm like, I'll use wrong words. Like, I'm like the guy in Wolf of Wall Street where he's like, sorry, I have no recommendation of that. No, but so
everybody forgive us.
Yeah,
we're better than this on our best days.
Yeah, some movies hit a 9 or a 10 not because of any sort of profound reason either, but just in terms of the enjoyment was just so exponential.
For sure.
It was just so enjoyable that it just it can't be below a 9 or a 10.
Yeah.
You want to break us into
and I totally agree where it's like 9, 10 is a physical response where I leave watching the movie, whether in home or at the theaters, like on a high. Like, I'm like, I felt great after watching that movie.
Yeah.
Physical response is a great way to put that.
That is a great way to put that. Yeah. Like, Jake, do you want to take us into like 9, 10s?
Yeah. So like 9s and 10s, I mean, It sounds like we're talking about attraction. We're talking about,
Yeah, how much you're attracted to that
talking
movie.
about chicks.
Yeah.
9s and 10s, man. You know, a 9 is it now? No, I wouldn't do
2 out
that.
of 3 of the big 3.
No, so we're talking about movies, everybody, for
Yes.
context.
Film.
So if you're just joining us, we are talking about movies. We are not talking about women. No, so 9s and 10s. So like it's like I said, 9s and 10s are just movies for the most part. If they not only hit generally that enjoyment threshold where it just blasts past an 8, where it's like I just enjoyed this so much, and like Jack said, had that physical response, but also in most cases, not all, but most, they lead to reflection and potential growth. I mean, Clerks, I grew after watching that movie. I grew as a person after watching that movie. It's a TV show, but Better Call Saul, a 10 out of 10. That movie made me, or that show made me think about my own life, especially that last episode with the whole time machine metaphor. It just made me reflect, you know? I think about it. I think about, there's movies and shows that I think about every day. I don't think, not every 9 and 10 that I've ever awarded to a film I think about every day, but a lot of them I do. I think about Clerks every day. I think about Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad every day. I think about Hannibal every day. I think about Shawshank Redemption almost every day. In some way, a fleeting moment. Even
I think about Raging Bull every day.
In there. Raging Bull, yeah. Running up the stairs scene. Is that the scene you think about every day, Edward?
But I have that at a 9. That's a 9 for me, Raging Bull.
Yeah. And there's not much of a difference between 9s and 10s other than, I guess, it's just so subjective at that point.
Yes.
It's just
100%.
The 10 is just, I don't know how else to explain it that doesn't sound rote. It just is like,
no,
it's what it is. The Irishman. It's what it is.
I think you nailed it.
Tony wanted Anthony to tell me to tell you. It's what it is.
I think you nailed it. Like, I think between what you said and what Jack said, I think you guys nailed it. In the sense that at that point, and that's why also I was saying that, like the Shawshank Redemption, I have it at an 8. And it's because like after that, right? After a movie so great like the Shawshank Redemption, everything that comes after that for me is really just like a level of intensity in like my response to the film. I have a movie like Oppenheimer at a 9.
Such a good film.
Yeah, Shin Godzilla, the Hideaki Anno 2016 movie, I have it at a 9. The new Godzilla, I have it at a 9. Godzilla -1. Parasite, I have it at a 9. So for me, these are movies, that are just like, there is something in those movies that touches me either in an emotional sense, either in an artistic sense. I feel inspired by those movies. Like I have No Country for Old Men at a 9 too. There Will Be Blood. The Godfather 1 and 2 I have at 9s. Or there are movies that they touch me in a emotional sense, in a artistic sense. I love them in terms of like their execution. And they speak to me in some way. Those are 9s for me. Those movies that are just like, it cannot be the 9. Not only is this great, but I have a relationship with this movie in some way. Like Jake said, I think about this movie. Sometimes I get shivers thinking about this movie. Sorry, you got shivers watching them.
That's how I felt about Heat. When Heat comes up on the podcast, I feel I'm literally like, oh, I could watch that right now. I could sit down. Like some of the scenes flash through my mind where I'm like, oh my god, that movie is one of the best I've ever seen. 100%. Anytime I hear about it, it's just like I almost physically am like, yeah, that movie's up there.
And then for me, like a 10 out of 10 are movies that I have and then it goes a little bit beyond that, right? It goes a little bit beyond even me getting shivers over the movie. Like a movie movies that I have at a 10, I have Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, I have Old Boy, I have the Before movies, like these are movies at that point that I have like a very personal relationship with these movies, like Old Boy and like, Before Sunset, I have like a very intrinsically like personal relationship with these movies where it goes beyond like anything else, have a very like metaphysical, artistic, and even emotional relationship with these films that I give 10 out of 10s to. That's it. That's the scale. If you guys can extrapolate it in a little bit more if you guys feel like you need to. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
I just don't feel like necessarily I don't think I've ever probably, and maybe this is just not me watching as many films, ever had probably an experience of what your 10 of a movie is.
Dude,
So my 10 of a movie is a little bit lower.
I've seen probably shy of 2,000 movies. I've only given a 10 out of 10 to 28 films out of 2,000 movies. I don't know what batting range that is. It's like 1 in 100,
Yep, yeah, it's a little over 10%.
Yeah, so that gives you
it's
like,
about the same for me.
1%.
Yeah, so that gives you a range, of like how I don't come across those films very often.
Mm-hmm. A 10 for me. One thing too that I really want to touch on with 10 out of 10 films, and this goes for shows as well, or any 10 out of 10 art form, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But 10 out of 10 movies, a lot of times too, I will, whatever I'm writing, if I'm writing in the genre of whatever genre I'm writing in, I am taking inspiration to some degree from the 10 out of 10 movies in that genre. Right. So like I just finished
They exemplify that.
Yeah, I just finished a comedy novel a couple weeks ago. Heavy Clerks influence.
Yeah.
Like that's my 10 out of 10 comedy.
Yeah.
One of my 10 out of 10 comedies, and very heavy Clerks influence in there.
Yeah.
Whenever I write horror, especially if it's like epic kind of fantasy horror mashup, so like adventure horror fantasy mashup, I'm pulling a lot of times. I'm pulling from The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy film. That's a 10 out of 10 action adventure film for me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that has to do too, not all the time, but a lot of it has to do with stuff you watched when you were young that just it's had time to just really sit in your subconscious.
For sure.
And so it comes out. So a lot of there's a lot of like, horror or fantasy mechanisms that I put in my fantasy horror mashups that I take from The Mummy, just certain aspects. And then like another one for me, Jack and I grew up on the Rayman games.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like that.
God.
Those games are embedded in my subconscious, and
they
anything
my framework of mine by playing those games.
Yeah, and like anything fantasy related, like again, the fantasy horror mashup novel that I finished. I'm revising it right now. I'm in the revision stage, and there are things that I took directly from the Rayman mythos.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes out where it's like this is just part of it, becomes a part of you in a way.
Yeah.
And it's a great feeling, man. Like when art can do that, but that's what makes 10 out of 10 so special. Like you said, Edward, it's that batting average. It's because they're so rare that they're so special,
rare. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But that's why I wanted to do this, because we've been doing this show, we've mentioned these things here and there, but I wanted to kind of give the audience something where they can come back to this point. Spend an hour talking about this subject, and now people can come back and be like, okay, what does this mean? If this guy says this, like, what does it mean for Jack or for Edward, or and maybe we can revisit this again, Jack, as you watch more movies, and maybe this evolves for you, like what that means. You know?
I might find a 10 that breaks the scale. Like I said, that's just even beyond what I've rated other 10s, and completely changes what that is.
Yeah, and it really does change. And I've been. It's interesting, how we have access to all this stuff, all this art that can't touch us, because they have these 10s in movies, but then there's TV shows and video games, like you guys said, and anime, which funnily enough, I'm trying to watch Blue Lock. Do you recommend the first season? I know you watched it.
First season I liked
but
Blue Lock. Second season,
because the animation kind of went down.
I think I touched on it. Some of the animation was like kind of iffy and not the best, but I liked Blue Lock.
Yeah,
I'd watch it over again.
Yeah,
if you want to watch a soccer anime, though, there's a anime called, I think it's Aoishi.
Oh, I haven't heard about that.
That's I'll send you it, and I liked it better than Blue Lock.
Really? But the anime is better than Blue Lock? Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it better. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, because I like you. The fact that you're here.
It's one season though.
Yeah, no, it doesn't matter because it probably has a manga. If I like the anime, I'll go read the manga. The fact that you're here and you're like into anime, you know, like has gotten me like kind of back into being like, fuck, I want to. It's also because of the summer. The summer also always makes me watch anime.
Yeah.
But when I was growing up, you know, I was watching anime all the time. Like when I was a kid, I was watching Dragon Ball and Naruto and One Piece all the time and Digimon, you know. And then when I was a teenager, I was watching all this other stuff like Cowboy Bebop. But since you being in the show and you're talking to me like about like solo leveling and Blue Lock, I'm like, oh shit, you know. So I checked out the first 10 minutes of Solo Leveling. I'm meaning to keep watching it because I really liked it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back, and I know season 2 is like premiering or just ended or it's about to premiere. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, second season's over, and man,
the show's over too, right?
I mean,
it's done.
No, show's not. I mean, I don't think the show's over. From what I've read in the manga, I've read far past where the show is.
Okay.
Very far past. Because I reached a point in season 2 where I was like, I'm all in on this, and I read the manga like all the way past because I found a little Reddit, a little subreddit that had a Google Drive link that had all the.
I'd like to have that stricken from the record, please. I need a sidebar with my client.
Good, because it's like it's Solo Leveling is like it's a manhwa, right? It's like one of those like Korean ones. Is that what?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Korean. It's a very much like a graphic novel more than really a manga.
Yeah.
Web novel, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, great. But it's one of those things where it's like you're not going to go in expecting it to be some like super deep, like crazy, like multi-web.
It's just fun.
It's just fun, and it's fun, dude. And it's just like this guy. He's him, and you're just along for the ride.
Like, dude, when you said that, like, because you said that to me, and I was like, "Fuck, I gotta watch that," you know. So I watched it. I watched a little bit of it, and I was like, "I'm gonna watch this." I've been reading One Punch Man again, because I love
One Punch Man's so good.
Love One Punch Man. I've been reading the manga again. I'm getting caught up on that. Yeah, we'll touch on.
Have you ever watched any One Punch Man or heard of it, Jake?
Oh, Jake, you've watched it.
Yeah, I've watched like the first. Yeah, I watched a few episodes. Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, the first season was crazy.
It was cool.
Like the first season of One Punch Man, I love that first season. I go back to it. I've rewatched it a couple of times. The first season, I've not watched the second season of the anime because I've heard it's not like the animation quality went down, so I don't want to watch it.
It did,
but I've read. The manga has 210 chapters, and I'm at 195 right now. So I'm 15 shy of being caught up with it. Because the manga looks insane. The guy who draws it, I think his name is Yusuke Murata. I think that's his name. Might be wrong.
Yeah.
But he is an alien. The level of quality of that guy's drawing is insane.
Man, I've never read One Punch Man.
Read it.
So,
dude,
yeah.
read it.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Okay.
You won't regret it. It's amazing.
Right. Another thing.
I'm going to watch Solo Leveling because of Jack, and I'll bring everybody in on that. I also want to watch, I know there's an anime called like Frieren or something.
Frieren, yeah, dude. I haven't watched all of it. Quality 10.
Yes.
As far as animation.
That's what I hear.
Oh my god. So, it is beyond anything I've ever watched in the fantasy realm of just feeling so like immersed and along for the ride.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
It just it's so good.
All the nerds back in the day that were like all about Full Metal Alchemist are now being like Frieren. It's the best shit ever, you know. So I want to go back and I want to watch that, and I want to watch Solo Leveling because I've over the past like 6 years I haven't watched any anime, so I want to kind of retroactively pick up whatever masterpieces came out in that time and watch them. So that's my new MO. Well, I'm not gonna do recaps this week because I gotta go. But everybody, I loved this episode. I thought we did a wonderful job. We'll bring you guys back up with recaps next episode and whatever else tangents we may have. Thank you for listening to us. Please go ahead and subscribe. We're going to have these episodes. If we don't have them, we'll let you guys know in the community posts as we did before. And stay tuned because on Wednesdays and Fridays, maybe Jake and I will have something fun for you guys in terms of shorts. Thank you so much. Jake, what do you have, if anything, for your next episode?
Yeah, so this one will be timely and relevant right now. So you guys probably know what it is before I even say the title, just based on the background that I give. But this is a movie that was just re-released in theaters.
I wonder if
I'm gonna have us do.
change.
I'm gonna have us do a commentary because we've all seen it of Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith next week.
Oh, hell yes!
So join us next week, everybody. We're gonna sit down with some popcorn and some drinks. Join us next week. Grab a whiskey, grab some popcorn, and join us because we're gonna do a commentary over Revenge of the Sith, but we're also gonna tangent too.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see what we think of Revenge of the Sith in 2025.
I could not be more excited than that call out for next week.
All right.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun, guys. So
next time,
stay tuned, guys. Yep. Thanks. See ya.
Film Tangents out.